Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is begin to explore the Adobe Illustrator interface. So we've created a blank canvas, and let's kind of begin to understand the different parts of Illustrator. One, you have all of your uh, tabs over here for all of your different options like swatches and gradients and so on. And first thing we're going to do, we're going to start by opening up a couple of palettes. We're going to open up the swatches. Now right now I have this set to my essentials. If you go to Window and go down to Essentials, over here on the right, Essentials, we want to set it to Essentials Classic. In addition to opening up my swatches, I want to have my color. I can go to Window. I can find my tools either on my palettes either on the right under Properties, or I can go under Window and I can find my properties, my palettes there as well. So I'm going to go to Color. I want to open up the color. I'm going to do a tear off on that so I can take it, just tear it loose. And I want to set this to show all of its options by clicking that little tab there and choose Show All Options. And we're working in CMYK, so you'll see there's a cyan, a magenta, a yellow, and a black slider. And then these are swatches. I'm going to show you how to make your own swatches and how to mix your own colors. That's one of the first things we're going to do. We're going to open up one more palette to start, and that's the layers. And so I can find it over here, and then what's even easier sometimes is just to go to Window, and if a palette is on, there'll be a check next to it. If there's no palette on, then there won't be a check, and I want to go down and choose Layers. So I want to have my layers, we'll do a tear off. I want to have my layers, my swatches, and my color palettes open to start, okay? And then we'll introduce more palettes as we continue the course. So here's our canvas, and the canvas is my artboard. So the idea is very interesting. And one of the differences between art applications, especially applications like InDesign, Illustrator, is that I can have artwork that extends beyond the edge of the canvas. So this area on, outside of the canvas can be used as a workbench, and then my actual finished product will be on the canvas itself, all right? Across the top, we have our menus, File, where I can import a piece of artwork or save a piece of artwork, create or edit the document, edit, cut, copy, paste commands, and so on. Object, and these allow me to select and modify objects. So remember that when you see these menus, lots of times what you'll see is that these are redundancies. A lot of these things, sometimes it's better to use it from the menu, sometimes it's better to use it with a keyboard command or from a tool on the toolbar. My type, we're going to explore how to modify type. One of the things about Illustrator is that it does really fantastic work with text and type. There's lots of really cool manipulations that you can do with text and type. If you're doing any kind of typography or logo design, then Illustrator will probably end up being one of your best friends. Select, so the select menu, once again, you'll probably use the select menu in some circumstances, but lots of times you'll be using your keyboard or one of these select tools to actually offer selections. Effects like converting shapes, rasterizing, warp, etc. We'll come back, we're going to work with those, and those are different ways to modify objects that have already been placed on the screen. Remember that when you're working in Illustrator, you're creating objects, you're editing objects on screen. So it's a bit different from, say, Photoshop, where you have layers. You have layers in Photoshop and layers in Illustrator, but they work a little bit differently as well. I have my view, and this is how I view my art. Under Window, these are where all my palettes are, and then there's the help. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to go through the tools on the toolbar. I'm going to talk about each tool. We're going to go back, and then we're going to work with each tool in succession. So first I have my selection tool, allows me to select objects, whole objects on screen. And then I have my direct selection tool, which allows me to select individual nodes. I have my magic wand tool, which allows me to select nodes using a magic wand type of a configuration. And then the lasso tool allows me to lasso around nodes, and nodes are the anchor points of the shapes. My pen tool, very important part of Illustrator, allows you to create precision drawing. And then there's a free-form pen tool or curvature tool. My type tool, we're going to go through, understand the mechanics of editing with text. My line segment, arc, spiral tools allows me to create various types of lines and segments. My shapes allows me to edit the shapes in Illustrator to create shapes, modify shapes. We're going to start there in a second. My paintbrush allows me to paint. So there's a number of ways to create, to draw. One is with a paintbrush, the other is with a pencil. We'll talk about the difference between drawing with a pencil and a paintbrush. And then my shaper, pencil, smooth, path eraser tool, all these are grouped together. What's interesting about Illustrator is if you see a little triangle in the lower right-hand corner of one of these tools, then what that means is that there are a number of other tools that are bundled underneath them that are closeted together because they share a common functionality. And so those are all my pencil and smoothing tools. My eraser, scissors, and knife. So these are tools for editing the nodes, for erasing or cutting the nodes. Rotate, so there's a number of ways to rotate shapes. I can rotate shapes using the menu, or I can rotate shapes using the rotate tool. Scale, shear, and reshape. Once again, I'm taking the shape and I'm scaling it or flipping it. The warp tools, what these allow me to do is to warp a shape and modify the shape. We're going to go through each one of these tools. I'm going to explain how they work. I'm going to demonstrate them right now. We're just going through and familiarizing ourselves with each tool. The free transform allows me to resize shapes. And then there's a puppet warp, which allows me to put pins into a shape and manipulate by the pins. Shape builder and live paint bucket, what this allows me to do is to manipulate raster art. I have my two-dimensional perspective tool, which allows me to draw in two-dimensional perspective. And lots of times people turn this on by accident. And then the way to turn it off is to go to view, go down to perspective grid, and choose hide grid, and I'll turn that back off. I have my mesh tool, and the idea with the mesh tool that allows me to take a shape that looks two-dimensional and make it look three-dimensional. I have my gradient tool. The idea of gradients, I'm making a color that transitions to a number of other colors. The eyedropper allows me to pick up a color and sample it somewhere else. The blend tool allows me to transition shapes. I can transition color, position, and shape. The little symbol sprayer allows me to spritz a piece of artwork on the canvas, make a stamp, and then repeat it. I have a tool for making graphs, a tool for modifying the artboard, a tool for slicing. My hand and my zoom allows me to zoom in and out of my canvas. And then I have down here my color picker. If I double click, it brings up the color picker. And notice that there's two swatches here, a foreground and background swatch, or a stroke and a fill swatch. And so when you're working in Illustrator, one of the things that you'll discover is that every shape has the potential for a stroke, a fill, and none. So that's basically our toolbar. We just wanted to go over, identify all the tools, learn how to set up our canvas, learn how to import or how to pull down our palettes, how to do a tear off. And we're going to start working with some of the tools in just a second.